We're happy that Tom is bringing his expertise to help rebuild the union movement in this country, but I'm sure his heart still lies with nursing home workers and caregivers just like us. We're proud to call him our own. Please join me in welcoming SEIU Executive Vice President Tom Woodruff.
It's great to be here. I want to bring you greetings from our new International President, Mary Kay Henry, who's done such a fantastic job in a short period of time. I also want to just recognize the real contribution your president, you know so well what he does here, but he also plays a leading role in the international union, and I can tell you that there's not a meeting, probably not an hour of a meeting, not a minute of a meeting where he's not advocating for long-term caregivers, and he does such a fantastic job at helping lead that division of SEIU. I also want to pay tribute to Suzanne and Adam, your executive committee, the wonderful leadership that you have. But mostly I want to thank each and every person in this room. You really are, and probably may not recognize that, a very remarkable group of people. So many members of our union around the country really believe in it, benefit from it, and come out and participate most often around contract negotiating time. But when it comes time to do the day-to-day work of leading the union on the shop floor and in the communities, you take time away from your families. I'm sure there are many things you could be doing this weekend with family, with friends. You made the decision to come here. You made the decision to be a leader of this union. And with the great leadership you have on the dais, quite frankly, this union would not run without you. And I just want to take a minute to say thank you to each and every one of you for your remarkable commitment and dedication. Thank you. Here's it. So I want to move to a few slides here and talk to you a little bit this morning about the crisis we face and what we are beginning to do in SEIU about it. And we're trying to build a plan to win real change in hard times. Working people are suffering. David, this whole room stood up. Workers all over this country would be in the same proportions as you in terms of standing up, and we're going further and further behind, really because of the concentration of corporate power in this country. Now 15 million Americans officially unemployed, another 15 million who are working reduced hours or part-time, not voluntarily, 30 million people in this country that don't have the jobs they need to have. 57% of Americans are concerned about losing their jobs. 10 million more foreclosures by the end of 2012 on top of the 7 million there have already been. More than 10% of Americans will lose their homes, homes that they worked hard every day and paid for, and because of an economic crisis they had nothing to do with, they're now going to lose the biggest asset they had in their lives. In 2009, productivity was up 9%. That's a measure of the average that we produce in terms of goods and services for every hour worked. We produced 9% more on average working people did across this country, and yet wages went down 4.5%. We ought to at least get wage increases equal to our increased productivity so that we could continue to move ahead. We lost 13.5% in 1 year on that measure. And what doesn't go to us in the economy, guess where it goes? It goes to corporations, it goes to CEOs, and we have more income inequality. 50% of workers nearing retirement have less than $40,000 saved. 43% of all Americans have less than $10,000. And concentrations of corporate power don't affect just us as workers. They affect us as citizens and members of the community, and we all sat and watched the BP oil disaster in the Gulf as a result of corporate power reducing regulation, corporations cheating on the regulation. We now have an economic disaster. And then just a few months ago in West Virginia, 29 coal miners died in a mine run by the Massey Corporation, whose CEO, Don Blankenship, prevented workers from having a union 3 different times. 80% of those workers signed up for the union, and Don Blankenship went personally and told them that the mine would close and they would not get any work in the coal fields again if they voted for the union. And the truth is, sisters and brothers, those miners would be alive, I believe, today had they had the union and been able to speak out against the safety violation in that mine. This concentration of corporate power affects us all of our lives, and even in that case, death. And then in 2009, Wall Street bonus is up 17%. The number of millionaires up 16%. Here's one that I find amazing. The CEOs, a study was done, the CEOs of the 50 corporations, not the 50 biggest, but the 50 corporations that laid off the most workers got 42% more pay than other CEOs. So we actually have a corporate culture in this country that the more jobs you destroy as a CEO, the more lives you destroy, the more you're rewarded. Something is wrong with that culture. And I just want to go through a few of these. Here, people have heard of Lowe's. I'm sure over 200,000 workers, all non-union, fight to keep the workers from having a union. $11 an hour is the average wage. The CEO makes $2,295 an hour. Wouldn't be a bad salary, huh? 209 times more than the average worker. Then we go to McDonald's, where the average wage for workers, again, over 300,000 workers, $8.11 an hour, fights the union. Nobody has a union. The CEO makes $2,359 an hour, and that's 290 times more than the average worker. Burger King, same thing, same number of workers, 683, $2,650 an hour, 388 times more than the average worker. FedEx fights the union. UPS, the union company, FedEx, misclassifies people, pays people an average of $11 an hour. Their CEO, Fred Smith, makes $5,740 an hour. That's 500, I'm getting to Walmart, 521 times more than the average worker. Bank of America, $10.38 per hour, the average bank teller's wage. CEO, he's gone now, $16,500 an hour, 1,590 times more than the average worker. And the last one, Walmart, average wage, obviously all non-union, fights the union, won't let workers organize, $8 an hour. Lee Scott, in his last 2 years, $15,800 an hour, 1,975 times more than the average worker. What that means is that when Lee Scott went to work and worked 1 hour on January the 2nd, 1 hour, he made as much as people that work in Walmart full-time all year round made in that year. I just want to skip a couple of these here and go to this. So now I want to talk about a few CEOs. This guy's name's Robert Nardelli. He was the CEO of Home Depot. And Home Depot decided they wanted to get rid of him. Now try this with your own boss, because my guess is some of your bosses would like to get rid of you too. So in order to get rid of him, they gave him $210 million to leave the company. Now, we'd take a deal like that, I guess, wouldn't we? So then this guy ends up at Chrysler, since he did such a good job at Home Depot. Then there's this guy, Gary Winnick. Another kind of story, ran a company named Global Crossing. He made $734 million out of a stock sale. Then the company went bankrupt, and $47 billion worth of stock equity was lost, including over $1 billion of our members. Our members who work every day, part of what they earn goes into a pension. The pension invested in Global Crossing. He takes $734 million. They lose everything they have. So I kind of got curious about this, like what in the world would you do with $734 million? And so I looked into it, and one of the things this guy did was he went to Bel Air, California, and he bought a mansion for $25 million. Now, it must have been a fixer-upper, because he had to put $10 million in it before he could move in. And after he was done with his renovations, this house had 25 bedrooms, 6 kitchens, and 30 bathrooms. Now, that makes me curious too, so I've been asking this question, and maybe you can answer it. I haven't found an answer anywhere that I've gone. Here's my question. How is it possible, how is it humanly possible for a single individual to be so full of shit that he needs 30 toilets inside his house? You know? One last one I'm going to do. This is Jack Welch. He was the CEO of General Electric. He's really the guru of CEOs. He's on talk shows all the time. He's written a book. Everybody wants to be like Jack Welch. You might remember 4 or 5 years ago, workers at GE, the company made $9 billion in profits that year. Workers had to go out on strike not to make gains, but to hold on to the health care they already had. A company that made $9 billion in profits trying to get workers to make concessions on health care. And when he left the company, he had $900 million in wealth, and he had a $9 million a year pension fund. Not bad, huh? I'd kind of take either one of those and be happy. He had them both. And that's all anybody knew until he decided he was going to divorce his wife, Jane. And he told Jane, while we're working through the divorce settlement, I'll give you $60,000 a month to live on. Well, there arose in Jane a serious feeling of righteous indignation at the thought of having to live on $60,000 a month. So she spilled the beans on Jack, and it turns out not only did he have $900 million and $9 million, GE was going to continue to pay $1 million for an apartment in Central Park. He got free use of the corporate jet. He got VIP tickets to the opera in Wimbledon. He got security services, and he got 4 country club memberships and fees. And as a result of the exposure of this, GE got embarrassed, and they took all of that stuff away from poor Jack. Well, so Jack got ticked that Jane spilled the beans, so he made Jane come into court and say, well, if you can't temporarily live on $60,000 a month, how much do you need? So she said she needed a monthly budget of $126,820. Don't get me wrong, sisters and brothers, I hope she got all of his money, but she said she needed $7,500 a month for clothing. Now, you all are a good-looking bunch out there, but I'm not sure there's $7,500 worth of clothes on all of us put together at the moment. She needed $10,360 a month for jewelry. She needed $20,000 a month for travel. Of course, she couldn't ride on the corporate jet anymore. She needed $5,000 a month in petty cash. Nobody likes to go to a mall on a Saturday afternoon without a little pocket change, right? And here's the one that I get a kick out of. She needed $8,260 a month for wine.